Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce our next speaker. Please have some standing ovation for developer, lover, Director of Open Source Strategy Community at Juniper, Vicky Brasseur. Kindly agreed to come here not only because of Cloud Native Days. She's an F1 lover, so she actually came for the F1 weekend here. And since I heard a lot of great feedback from people who works in open source. They said if Vicky's in town, you must invite her. And that's what I did, and she kindly agreed to help and present at our event. So thank you, Vicky, for coming. Hopefully you'll have an amazing keynote.
Both holding the clicker and the microphone. And I'm turning on my timer. It's actually, pro tip, have that be the very first speaker note. Turn on your timer. So hello everyone, and thank you for being here at the first ever Cloud Native Day here in Montreal. We've all heard that multiple times, but we're saying it multiple times because it is literally that exciting. That a new event can attract such a crowd. It just helps to show the power of Cloud Native. Everyone is doing some sort of Cloud Native thing right now, and that landscape around it, therefore, is constantly shifting. It's changing every single day, which means that events like this, where you can keep up to date, and you can hear directly from people from CNCF, we can hear from Luke, what's going on? Without that, you might fall behind. So this is an excellent event. Now, in this talk, I'm going to cover why it is so successful. What has made Cloud Native really take off? There are three pillars to that, three foundational things that have made Cloud Native so successful and will ensure that it stays successful. Now, it is the newest, hottest thing on the block, this Cloud Native thing, right? Well, maybe not. I mean, it's really hot, that's obvious, otherwise y'all wouldn't be in this room. But is it actually new? Now, Google Trends doesn't think so. If you're not familiar with Google Trends, let me explain what's going on here. Now, the most popular point for any search term is given the number 100. Right here, that little 100 there. And so it just starts at 100, and everything is proportional down from there in percentages. So, over here, at 100, we see April 2019, which not coincidentally is the same time as KubeCon EU in Barcelona and the 5th birthday of Kubernetes. So lots of people were searching for Cloud Native at that time. But down here in 2005, we have something that was 25% as popular. 25% as of a massive number is itself a really massive number. So you can see that actually Cloud Native isn't very new at all. There was lots going on well over a decade ago in Cloud Native. What is relatively new, however, is this. You see this little spark right here, that little peak that is pretty much the same size as this little peak over here. This peak right there, that is the launch of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, also known as CNCF, which is where Luke works. Would like to point out, I don't work for CNCF. So that spark, this little spark right here, led to this massive fire on the other side. Launching the Cloud Native Computing Foundation also launched Cloud Native. Even though it was starting to be on the rise, it really took off at that point. And here's how it has taken off. The hotness I mentioned earlier is known now as the Cloud Native landscape, and it is massive. Now, you probably can't read most of these little icons, and that's okay. Because when I was looking at this on my screen, I couldn't read them either. That's how many of them there are. They're just crammed in there, and they all interoperate. They might not all be Cloud Native Computing Foundation member projects, and they're not. Several of them aren't. But they do all interoperate, and that's because they're all Cloud Native. And that's absolutely brilliant. That's thanks to the leadership of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation member projects. They've enabled this level of interoperability, and that's cool. CNCF is really a Cinderella story. It came out of kind of almost nowhere. It's a little foundation. It started with nothing. It didn't actually start with nothing. I know this chart shows it starts with nothing right there. Really what happened is that there wasn't data for 2016. But at the very beginning, there really wasn't very much going on at CNCF. It didn't have a ton of member companies who have joined and agreed to collaborate together to build cloud-native and cloud-native computing projects. But look at this growth. It's nearly 400. Nearly 400 companies have come together under the Cloud Native Computing Foundation just so far. This is 2018. Wait till you see the graph with 2019 added. I mean, it's just massive. The key here is to see just how much it has grown and in how short of time. CNCF started with only one project, Kubernetes. It was the only child of CNCF for quite a while, but it became commonplace now. Every single year for CNCF to add more than 10 new member projects, like Jaeger, like Rook, to add them every single year. Look at this growth. This is what we call up and to the right, kids. We love that. As a matter of fact, for the past year and a half, CNCF has added at least one and sometimes up to 3 new member projects every single month. They took a couple of months off here, but I think we can all agree that they've been busy and kind of needed a break, so that's okay. There are now nearly 40 total member projects under the CNCF umbrella, and that number keeps rising. More projects, more and more, keep joining Kubernetes under that umbrella. And there's no sign of that slowing down. And while, yeah, it might get a little snug under that umbrella, that's okay, because they all interoperate, and Kubernetes likes the company. And all of this incredible, massive growth, and everyone hopping on the CNC bandwagon, is for something that we didn't even have a definition for until 2018. Until this point, right here, a year ago, June 2018, we didn't even have a single definition that we all agreed upon, that this is cloud native. So look at this, growth for something that we didn't even know what it was. Right? That's just incredible. That's the power of cloud native software and what it brings to all of our companies. We do, however, have that definition, as I said, in June 2018, and here it is. It is kept in GitHub in the CNCF TOC repo here. It's kind of hard to read. This one's slightly easier. So you can probably read this to the back of the room. The key part of this definition, however, and therefore the key part of all of Cloud Native, is here, in the middle. These techniques enable loosely coupled systems that are resilient, manageable, and observable. Combined with robust automation, they allow engineers to make high-impact changes frequently and predictably, with minimal toil. Loosely coupled systems, resilient, manageable, observable, automated. This is cloud native. And we all agree on this now, because now we have this definition. Now, despite how relatively new it is, the cloud native definition is the first of those 3 pillars I mentioned. It is the very first piece that is going to ensure the success and longevity of cloud native. With this definition, we finally all have a shared understanding of what it means to be cloud native. And with that shared understanding, I now know that what you mean when you say cloud native is the exact same thing as what I mean when I say cloud native. And that is a level of understanding that we didn't have before June 2018, but now we do. And that incredible level of understanding, that shared understanding, means we can stop arguing and we can stop negotiating what it means. When I say cloud native, you'll understand. We can set aside all that time we've been wasting on negotiation of terms and spend it on developing things. So this enables a level of collaboration that we haven't had before. And that collaboration leads to an interoperable landscape like this, which, by the way, you can see anytime you want at landscape.cncf.io. It also has this excellent download of a CSV file. That is the source of most of the data that I've shown here. So I mentioned collaboration that enabled that landscape. And that collaboration is the second pillar. In 2018, nearly 500,000 people contributed to free software, to open source software, sorry, not free, sorry for your friends, to open source software that is a member of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, one of those 40 projects. Now, 500,000 people, that's, you know, if you look at the census for 2016, Montreal had approximately 1.7 million people. That's kind of like walking down the street in Montreal and having nearly 1 out of every 3 people you pass be a contributor to a Cloud Native Computing Foundation project. Or it's like going to Halifax and having every single person you pass be a contributor to a Cloud Native Computing Foundation open source project. And some of these people, you know, they're worldwide. They're all over the place. They are coming together to build these things, but they're coming together from competing companies to collaborate and to build something that's shared for everyone. Competitors coming together to build something amazing and create a win that wouldn't exist otherwise. That's the level of collaboration and teamwork that is brought about by a shared definition. It's also brought about by this. About 95% of the projects under the CNCF, the open source projects, are under the Apache license. There are 2 that are not. Well, one kind of is because it's dual licensed under MIT and Apache, but 100% of them, all of them, are open source. All of them are open source software. They are all under Open Source Initiative approved licenses. OSI, Open Source Initiative. And that open source, that is the 3rd pillar of Cloud Native. But what does it really mean to be open source or OSI approved? Now, I've been doing free and open source software for about 30 years now. So I've kind of watched this whole trajectory going on. And what I've learned in the past several years is that people think they know the answer to this, but they don't. They're really close, but the details matter in a situation like this. So what we have are people who seem to have learned about open source via the telephone game. I heard it from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone way down the road. You may have had the actual truth, but it gets morphed with each telling. The thing is, there's a definition for that. Like there's a definition for Cloud Native. There is a definition for what it means to be open source. And it's here. This is the very short version because it has to fit on a slide. But the open source definition is maintained by the Open Source Initiative. The definition is accepted worldwide as the canonical meaning of open source. This is what it means to be open source. You can find the full version down here. So the OSD details what it is required of any software that calls itself open source. Software that does not provide each and every one, not just 9, not like more than half, but all 10. If the software doesn't include all 10 of these freedoms and benefits, it is not open source. Literally by definition, it is not open source. So that's one of the things that the OSI does, is people hand over their licenses and they say, hey, can you have a look at this? Because we, as the company or the lawyer or the project, we think that this license enables all of this. And the OSI looks at the license and it either goes, yeah, actually, this license does not restrict any of the freedoms or benefits that are in the OSD. We are going to approve it. We are going to certify that any software that uses this license provides these things and is open source. But if, for instance, when the license doesn't allow people to, say, do a certain thing with it, say make money, then it's not open source. And so that does not get OSI approved. So that's really beneficial because it means that you don't have to get a lawyer involved. All you have to do is look, is this an OSI approved license? Yes, it is. I know exactly what that means. Because we have a shared definition, a shared understanding of what it is to be open source. Without that shared understanding, you could find a project that says, hey, we're open source, and you can take it and you can use it in your company. You can use it in your own project. And then later down the road, you find out that that project's definition of open source is not the same as yours. And suddenly, once you finally read the license, you find out that, oh shit, they own all my code. Right? And that's not open source, because that's not what open source allows for. So that's why it's really important for us to have these shared definitions. These shared definitions are vital, not only to communication, but also to commerce, and to development and innovation. Because again, without them, we'd spend forever negotiating our terms rather than building amazing things together, like cloud-native technologies. So those are the three pillars that make cloud-native so compelling. We've got the cloud-native definition, we've got the collaboration, and we've got under that, we've got the open source that underpins it all and makes it all possible. Together, these three pillars form a rock-solid foundation for all of Cloud Native. So I am Vicky Brasseur, but because we're all friends here, you can call me Vicky. I am the Director of Open Source Strategy for Juniper Networks, so feel free to talk to me about open source or Juniper or anything like that. You can find me here at Twitter. I tweet a lot, apologies in advance. And these slides are available right now at that URL at Internet Archive, both with and without speaker notes. Thanks to Cloud Native Day team for having me, and thank you all for being here. Have a great conference.